Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
All of me is over. So it's time to take out the little fireman.
Roger Cobb was a rising young lawyer whose first big case...
Guess what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to come back from the dead.
Was a basket case.
What am I missing here?
You see, thanks to His Holiness Bragalaza, my soul is going to leave my body forever and become one with the universe.
At which time my soul will enter her body.
Ah, good plan.
They put her soul in a bowl. But things got out of control.
I lost her.
What's that?
Then it worked. Oh, my Lord! I can't believe this. I can't even die right.
Somebody please tell me this is not happening.
We obviously have mutual control over our body.
Our body? It's my body! I'm not sharing my body with anyone!
Everybody's gonna be real disappointed.
Now,
Andy, we have reached the end. We've reached the end of our conversation about the fantastic Steve Martin with All of Me, 1984.
A little sad. A little sad about that.
Well, let's start with that. Let's start by probing some feelings, shall we? Let's talk about your sadness.
Go with that.
Let's dive
Go
deep.
with that.
Why are you sad?
I really do enjoy Steve Martin. He's fun to watch. He's done a lot of movies that I think are worth talking about. And by this point in his career, I feel like he's really starting to rev things up and moving forward pretty nicely. I think if we were to continue this, we actually have done the very next one, which would be Three Amigos. So we've already talked about that on this very show. But jumping into some of the other stuff that he's done, I mean, there's a lot of fun projects that Steve Martin has worked on as an actor, as a writer. I think that there's a lot with him that is worth exploring because he does a variety of stuff, as we've kind of looked at here. I mean, we've had largely all comedies. Pennies from Heaven was a little bit of a different spin for him. But I think over the course of these 6 films that we've looked at, he's shown a good bit of range as far as, over-the-top characters, a little more interesting types of stories and everything. And here in All of Me, his final collaboration with Carl Reiner, I do think that it's starting to feel like a little more mature, and I mean, there's still it's kind of a fantasy still. So I mean, it's still some silliness going on in this one. But you look at like Three Amigos is coming up soon, and that's going to be a lot more silly, along with what he does in Little Shop of Horrors. But then he does Roxanne, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which have more
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Well, that gets a little sillier again, and then Parenthood is very straight, and L.A. Story is a straighter one. Father of the Bride, Grand Canyon, like he is going to go back and forth with the types of films he does. And I think right out of the gate with the 6 films we've looked at, we can see how this as an actor, he is exploring the types of roles and showing that he has a range.
I think that is absolutely true. And this has been a particularly gratifying series for me because I feel like more than other series that we've done, I have actually been able to chart the growth. I don't mean like chart the growth, but see the growth of Steve Martin as a performer and see where his practice has led him. And I am so excited to dive into some of these other movies. Some of these other movies, this is like the key period of Steve Martin, right? I mean, these are his just really fantastic movies all the way up to, Bowfinger and, Spanish Prisoner and Sergeant Bilko. I know you're a big fan of Sergeant Bilko. Okay, so every chart has its dips. But anyhow, I feel like there are just some just fantastic examples of what he is able to do as a performer, as a comedian, and as a writer in some of these cases in these movies. They're just great. And this has been a series that has really set the table for an incredible decades-long career.
It really has. It's nice to see what he can do. And I am glad to have gone and looked at these films because, again, I had only seen a couple of them before we started. Now getting a chance to kind of explore them and look at these early films of his career, I can really see kind of, where he came from and how he's grown as a performer. So it's been fun looking at these films.
Should we go through some of the tropes that we've been talking about with relation to his characters over the last 6?
I think, sure. We may as well start with sex.
All right. Can we?
It's been awfully important to him in every single film.
It sure has. And in this film, he was off to the. I mean, it was pretty good. Like everything was doing okay, and then it had to happen. He had to find his way to it. But here's the thing. And the reason I want to start with sex is because I think sex becomes a bar over which all of these other tropes end up falling in his sophistication as an actor. In this movie, the slapsticky nature of the sex sequence and his desire for Victoria Tennant's character and all of the sort of mayhem that ensues around the 2 characters living inside of him, it works for me. It actually, I find it genuinely funny and charming and sort of diabolical and clumsy and all of the right things. Like his sex drive in this movie works better than in any of the other films that we've seen him work in it so far.
there's a little more complexity to it because of that.
Yeah.
And even at the beginning of the film, when we first meet him and he's talking to his girlfriend, it's not really, I felt like, okay, there's a little more of a maturity with the relationship. Sure, he's struggling with the whole idea of marriage. He can't even say the word, but at least it's a relationship. At least it's not just something that's all about sex. He's not instantly wanting to just jump into the sack with her. So, I appreciated that with the way that his character began his relationship, and we got to see that. That was nice. And yes, then I think the sex part of the story, the fact that he had Edwina Cutwater controlling half of his body and was having conversations with Lily Tomlin in his head while he was kind of figuring it all out, I think that allowed for the comedy to come through. So it wasn't just about the sex. And actually, I think Lonely Guy, right before this, he had that, there was a little more of an adult aspect of or point of view, I should say, of sex, and kind of it wasn't just such a silly, playful thing like I got my special purpose, and stuff like that that we had
just goofy
in previous films. Yeah, this was there's a little more serious take to it.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciated that here, and because of the character of Edwina not having ever been in a relationship before and being a virgin, it allowed for kind of a nice conversation in a way where he kind of talks to her about it, and how helping her figure out how to fantasize and what to do, and allowing kind of this thing to happen. It ended up kind of working in a nice way. I liked it.
How great is Lily Tomlin in this character? Just answer me that.
Well, Lily Tomlin's just always great.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be talking about her again in a few weeks, which will be great. Looking forward to that when we jump into 9 to 5 in our Colin Higgins series, which is next.
Right, which was before All of Me, and which I find interesting because it's still pretty early in her career. I guess. I mean, she'd been around for over a decade by the time this film came out. But as a comedian, my memory of her started with 9 to 5. So as a comic actor in film, and it wasn't until after that I started exploring, what she had done on Laugh-In, and that came to me much later. Her character work, her extraordinary comic character work, and so it's really fun to go back to this movie and see just how broad of a talent she was so early on. And I think her craft meets Steve Martin's craft right at the perfectly right time for them together to be a great on-screen, generously on-screen couple in this movie. I find their relationship as they come together and as they bicker and then as they come together again so believable in such an unbelievable construct.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where I first ran into her. It probably was like the Muppet Show or something like that.
Oh, yeah, right.
To be honest. It's possible this was the first film I saw her in. It's also possible The Incredible Shrinking Woman, which came out a few years before, might have been where it started. I definitely saw her in Big Business. And then from that point forward, quite a number of the films she had been in. And of course, catching up eventually to her great performance in Nashville that she did with Robert Altman. I think she's great, and she has a great comedic sensibility. I don't feel like I had really explored much. Well, I guess Big Business. So I guess I had seen some of the comedy stuff, but in my head, I associate her. It's weirdly, I associate Lily Tomlin a lot with kind of the Robert Altman side of things, which I don't think of as funny, but I feel like I probably have seen her in more comedies. So it's funny that I associate her more with kind of the Altman performances, but she really is a funny actress, and she's done a lot of really comedic stuff. And working off or opposite Steve Martin, I think is a great pairing. Putting the two of these comedians together opposite each other as just kind of the two people who are going to be constantly butting heads throughout the film. It was really smart.
Really. I mean, she is the consummate shaken straight character, right? Like I think about her as, in the movie that wasn't all that great, but she was Jane Hathaway in the Beverly Hillbillies. And like her ability to be that sort of straight foil character and then just watch her fall apart when she's confronted by very strange things going on, I think she's just so good at it. That's like a quintessential sort of talent of hers. And I think this movie, you kind of get that. She is that, this is the fishbowl story for her character arc, right? She's just put in a very strange thing. What's so great about it is that it's a very strange construct that she was seeking as a character. Like, this is exactly what she wanted. It's just the wrong body, and the perils that come with that desire, I think, make just such a funny set of circumstances for her to play with. We add. Well, there are a couple of characters that we want to talk about, I think, is that we add to the mix. The one that is the most adorable and diabolical is, of course, my favorite, Terry Hoskins, played by Victoria Tennant. When did you fall in love with her?
I feel like I have seen very few things with her. Looking through her filmography, I feel like there's Flowers in the Attic, but I don't picture her as the performer from Flowers in the Attic, so I don't think of that. But L.A. Story is where I first really met Victoria Tennant and fell in love with her.
The fact that we get her twice with Steve Martin, too, this many, is really exciting. She has a much, I think, more robust catalog of credits than just those two movies. She's been in a lot more stuff, but it's a lot of TV in the last decade. And Alex and the List, her most recent credit, 2017, I've never heard of. Oh, she did Louder Than Words.
This is where she met Steve Martin, and they clicked and fell in love, got married a couple years later. And then they did LA Story together and got divorced a few years later after that.
You know what? It's okay. I'm really happy with this set, right? This set of two movies. They're adorable. I love them both. And she was great. And I think her turn in the movie is, again, it's believable. It's got a good setup. I totally saw it coming, because who in their right mind would want to do this cockamamie scheme? And we needed a foil, and she was the perfect one for it. And yet I was right along with it. It felt earned.
Well, that's what I thought made this work, is the fact that she agrees to all of this because she thinks it's complete hooey, which, I mean, it sounds like complete hooey.
Yeah.
You've got this idiotic swami, and the fact that he can accomplish anything is surprising because his character is played so dumbly. I struggle with him, I think, more than anyone else.
Really? You're talking about Prakalasa, played by Richard Libertini.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to hear all about
that. Is that his name? Yeah, the Guru Pranka.
Yes.
Yeah, Guru Pranka. Right. Yeah. But anyway, we'll come back to him.
Okay.
It's such nonsense that Edwina has worked out the fact that she will be able to transfer her consciousness from her body when she dies to another living body. I can totally buy into the fact that Terry would say, sure, sign me up, because who's going to believe that, And then the fact that at the end, she realizes, or not at the end, but once she realizes that it really worked and Edwina is now in Roger instead of her, I think it creates an interesting twist in the story, because all of a sudden now she has to fight to avoid anything happening, and it allows for kind of, more interesting things to happen throughout the story. So to me, that was a nice position for Terry to take at the beginning of the film that I bought into.
Totally. And I think you're right. The set of circumstances that have to come together for her to become the character that has to actually avoid change is really interesting to me, right? That it's this simple twist, and now she just can't be found out. And there are a couple of little really obvious turns that I actually found delightful when she says, on second thought, let's go back to the apartment. Let's wait there. When they just said, wait, no, we have to go here. Those little twists and that little kind of cat and mouse game that she was leading them on, I think was really funny. It was a funny part of that transition into the third act. Now let's talk about Praka. Why don't you like Praka?
I don't mind like these metaphysical kind of crazy characters in films. I think that the 80s was a time when they looked at this sort of person as just kind of a bubbly buffoon who, couldn't make heads or tails out of anything. And here we have this guy who can transfer consciousness from one person to another. But when a phone rings, he thinks it's the toilet because he accidentally was flushing the toilet, or not accidentally flushing. He was flushing the toilet coincidentally when the phone rings. And so now he thinks when he flushes the toilet, the phone rings, or when the phone rings, he needs to go flush the toilet. It's just, that played very poorly for me. I'm like, this is that 80s sort of silly joke about, these wise people, but they're too dumb to really understand any of this modern technology. That I struggled with, and he's okay when they're in the conversations and trying, speaks poorly. People are, Steve Martin in particular is trying to converse with him. That didn't bug me so much. It was mostly all the gags with the toilet.
Okay.
And you loved that bit.
I feel like he has, well, no. Okay, of course. Like all the things you're poking at. And when you poke at him on a podcast, of course I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. That's dumb. He should have been fired. Cut from the sky. I want this movie not to exist anymore. No, I feel like this movie has a lot of earned heart for me because of all the other things that it does well. And frankly, I enjoy the way he bumbles around. And I love the way he plays this sort of fake swami accent and the whole back and bowl bit. I'm all here for it. Back and bowl, you put back and bowl. That is delightful, and it's something that I quote to this day whenever I put anything into a bowl. I do it every time if I'm making cereal or waffle batter or something that needs to go back in the bowl. It's back and bowl, and nobody understands around here. Nobody understands, Andy. But it's funny in my heart, and
I share your pain in that. Yeah. As somebody who often quotes random lines from completely obscure films, only to have people not have any sense as to what you're saying. I get it.
So, it's not that part's not great about just my life, but about this movie, it is great. I think he's a wonderful sort of, like, he plays that part that Steve Martin had played in The Jerk, right? It's the like absurd comedy foil, right? It's the far end of the comic spectrum, the slapstick, the lampoon, the doofus. Like, we need something like that in this movie. I guess that is a question. Do we need some character like that in this movie to riff off some of the more subtle bits of comedy and sobriety?
Well, because the fantasy nature of the story calls for it to exist, you almost need to have somebody like that. Now, I mean, I just felt like the comedy bits around him could have been a little stronger, as opposed to just being the completely idiotic foreigner who just doesn't understand anything that's going on. Yeah. And, maybe in 1984, there hadn't been a ton of that in films yet, so it wasn't quite so played out, but by now, like, rewatching it, I'm like, oh, this old trope gets silly real quick.
I feel like we've talked, what was it we talked about? And somebody, I think it was Nick in the chat room, who pointed this out, that we didn't talk much about the sort of self-help guru craze that swept through the 70s and 80s.
Oh, with the Brood.
It was with the Brood. And
that was when we were doing our Brood episode.
And I don't know about you, man, but I lived in a neighborhood in the 80s where all of the stay-at-home moms, housewives, had gurus who came over and were either doing Tai Chi or some sort of transcendental meditation and giving them their own mantras and all of the stuff. It was happening in homes. Like, the fact that this guy existed in this movie to lampoon that craze, where here's this woman who is stuck in her house. She is bedridden. She has these health problems, but she has her guru who's going to come help her get out of these problems. To me, that was funny. I mean, that was an extension of what I grew up with in the old north end of Colorado Springs.
I mean, I didn't see a lot of that, but I believe that it existed. So, I mean, I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying that the way that they portrayed him was a little little strong. But yes, I think for 1984, it probably played better.
Can you just tell me what you think of Richard Libertini as an actor?
Oh, I really enjoy him. I mean, looking through his credits, he's not one of those actors who's in like lead roles in tons of things, but seeing him in Fletch, the 2 Fletch movies, I think he's great as Fletch's boss. You know, I think he's one of those guys who's got kind of a presence that works well in cinema.
I do too. He's one of those face guys. Like you know him.
Yeah, exactly.
You just know him. Yep. He's super fun. Okay.
Same thing with Madeline Smith. Who I very much recognized as soon as she pops up. She plays the original girlfriend. And she was one of those faces that I'm like, oh, I totally recognize her as a face. And we actually, she was in 2010.
Right.
We saw her in that when we talked about that. I can't remember if we called her out in that particular film. Interestingly, she hardly was in anything. She worked in film and TV from 80 to 94 and then retired from the business. So hasn't done anything since.
She was, however, in one episode of the Casablanca TV series. Didn't know that existed. And now I do, 1983. So, imagine that.
Funny Farm.
Oh, yeah,
Funny Farm is the other one that
Yep.
Definitely.
Urban Cowboy.
I haven't seen Urban Cowboy, but...
The other, I was actually surprised that you went with Madeline Smith as the other face when we have Selma Diamond in this movie.
What a voice. As soon as she pops on, I'm like, oh, it's her. I always loved her. And mainly it was because of Night Court.
Oh, of course. That's exactly what
she was. The bailiff.
She's so good. She's so good. And she also doesn't have that many credits, apart from, of course, an extensive run on Night Court. But she has a voice that you can't miss of a certain era. My kids don't recognize it, but my goodness, it is just perfect. And she's also she was in 9 to 5, the TV series, of all things.
Yeah, she started working in the 60s, and this was actually her last feature film. I think she did a TV project after this, and maybe some more of Night Court, but otherwise, this was the last feature film that she would appear in, sadly. Oh, and My Favorite Year, she appeared in that as she was the wardrobe mistress in that. So this was one of those movies with a few faces to recognize. Dana Elcar was another face that you definitely recognize from all of this. And, MacGyver was a show I loved growing up, and seeing him in here was great because he was always great in MacGyver. Although here he's a little more of a rapscallion, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he pops in The Sting. We talked about him in The Sting. And if we talked about him in anything else, I think that might be it. Yeah. 2010. He was also in 2010.
Right. He was the Russian in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Of course. I want to talk a little bit about Jason Bernard. Who
another face that's like, oh.
Yeah, this is a great game or great movie for like drinking dominoes of faces. Like this is a perfect movie for that. All of these faces are super recognizable, but Jason Bernard is one of them. It's funny. I was just looking at his IMDb top 4. I'm sure you're probably looking at the page right now. Aren't you?
I'm not. I'm
really.
Looking
so
on,
we could do it.
Wikipedia.
Could we do it? All right, let's do it. So tell me, what do you think his top 4 are?
Oh,
it's going to be hard. 95 credits, and he's a face guy.
Yeah, he's a face guy, so I'm not going to know what he's been in. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page to see all of his films.
Perfectly fair.
So now I can just say the 4 that I think that he'll be in.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, he was in The Facts of Life once. I don't think that's one of them.
It's not.
I'm going to say Liar, Liar, which was his final film role.
Nailed it. That's one.
I'm going to say, no, I doubt that because he was uncredited. Oh, should I say Blue Thunder? I don't know. War Games. Oh, what is he known for? Gosh, I can't picture him in a lot of these, and I feel like I need to be able to picture him to say yes. I am going to say, this is hard. I'm going to say Starman?
No.
Oh, I'm going to say...
I'm just giving you 4 guesses. That's how we're going to play this game.
I know. That's fine. War Games.
Yes.
And I will say Blue Thunder.
No. So you're 2 for 4.
Right.
The other 2 are While You Were Sleeping, 1995.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I see that here.
I'm a little bit surprised you didn't see your man 2x4 in No Way Out and think, of course, that's going to be the other one. He
I
played
didn't even see that on the list
Major
here.
Donovan in 1987 in No Way Out with Kevin Costner. He is just one of those fascinating sets of credits, and wonderful face, wonderful voice. And in this movie, he plays the blind saxophonist, and he's fantastic.
He is one of those guys who just does a good job in those small roles, and always did. It worked great for him. So yeah, I had a great time seeing him in this.
I feel like we started going into the cast and we've missed some points.
We did, but it's good to just kind of get that out of the way. So that's fine.
That's what we're all about.
We would have talked
house.
about it eventually. Yeah. So, this is just a random tidbit, though. Lily Tomlin was born the day World War II started, and Steve Martin was born the day World War II ended. Just a little note for you.
Fancy that. All right. So we don't like the idiot swami. Check. We need to talk more about Terry.
Before we talk about Terry, let's talk about the rules for what happens in this film. How well do they work for you? We've got this whole thing where he gets hit on the head by this bucket. You got to buy into the fact that her consciousness is in it, and now she controls the right half of his body.
Right.
How does it work for you? Because the rules are kind of a little bit all over the place as far as when he can talk to her, when he has to talk and to respond to her, and when she kind of controls him and talks for him, and just kind of how all of that works. Does that work for you? Do you feel like that the rules are a little wishy-washy as far as when they're doing what things?
Okay, so let's say I agree with you that they are wishy-washy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just suppose.
I like this supposition.
How much, on a scale of 1 to 10,
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Would you like to finish?
Should I care?
There you go. God, we've been doing this so long, we finish each other's sentences.
That's right. Sandwiches, I was going to say.
Okay, so I do understand what you're talking about, and in the twilight hours after watching the movie, I can think, okay, yeah, I guess that's not quite right, but I'm never thinking about it that hard. This movie does not, for me, it does not present me any opportunities to take me out of the movie enough to think about the rules and where they are broken. And I think that is a great gift of this movie. Its comedy is so light and charming that it doesn't give me an opportunity to sweat it.
I think you're absolutely right. It was a test question.
Oh, man, I feel very nervous.
You passed. No, I think that you're right. It's a little wishy-washy as far as when they're talking, physically speaking, when they're thinking to each other. But it's okay because it ends up building it in a way where they kind of can do either. They use both of them. They use it in a way where it ends up being effective. And I always believe, and this is a huge thing that makes this film work, I always believe in Steve Martin's performance that he is possessed in half by this woman, because he is brilliant in the way that he moves his body, particularly the female half of it, and reacts to himself. Like, just it really floors me like that this performance didn't get more notice for him, because he is really just doing so much with this, with all the little nuances that he has to do. And I think that's why it ends up working. And you end up not caring that there's some kind of flexibility in the way that, everything is happening between these two, because he makes you feel like it's all possible.
Yes. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think the bits the physical bits that you notice with Steve Martin are the physical bits that are really, really big, right? I think when he first comes out of when he first gets hit on the head with the ball, and he's dragging himself to the tree and to the door, and there is this moment where he's doing this thing with half his body pulling him one way and the other half dragging him the other. That I really am looking for ropes. I feel like he's being literally, he has like invisible ropes that are tied to him, dragging him. His movement is so spot on, believable. But it really, to your point, it's the feminization of his hand and his arm, and when he touches things just the right way, he's doing it with a delicacy on just half his body that is. It surprises me every time, and you kind of have to look for it. But when you do, you can't unsee it, right? It is his performance is so nuanced, and it just makes it that much funnier.
And it goes back and forth from being nuanced to being over the top, but always over the top in the right ways. Like when all of a sudden Edwina, like he's sleeping in his half of the body, and she's controlling the entire body in court and is trying to act like a man. And at first she's being too feminine, and then she's trying to be masculine, and it's over the top because she has no idea how to do it. And it plays so well. It's just so perfect the way that it's all happening. And you buy that it's a woman controlling Steve Martin's body, not that it's Steve Martin acting it out.
Yeah. It's that good.
Now, what about when they're seeing each other? This really, it bothered me the most when he was shaving, because he can't see himself anymore when he shaves. He has to shave his face, looking at her face, imagining what he's shaving on his own face, and using her to say, okay, stick your tongue out, tighten that cheek there. But it's like, yeah, but you're not seeing, you can't even see the shaving cream to see if you got all the shaving cream off.
I'm not going to lie to you, Andy. You just broke me a little bit. I've never made that connection. That is totally, I swear to God, that's totally new to me. It's 34 years where we are. I've never made that connection that when he says, can you go like this? And she sticks his tongue in the cheek, that he actually couldn't see himself. Oh my God, I feel like this is a different movie. Did we watch the same movie? Now.
Yeah, it's one of the, but again, you end up buying into it because you've already bought into so much more with the film. So the film, it's one of those things where I still struggle with that, the fact that he's shaving but can't see what he's doing. But still, I've already kind of committed to all of the stuff that's going on. So I end up saying, you know what, they already earned it. I will let it slide.
Absolutely. That I will agree, and I'm moving on. But it does make me rethink the bathroom scene where she says, do you want me to take it out? Or do you want me to tap it? And he says, yes. And now I'm wondering, what does she see from her perspective when she looks down out of the mirror? And what does he see? Now I'm broken.
She's not looking out of the mirror.
No, I know, but you get, please tell me you get what I'm saying. Like it's a vision of him looking down. But what does he see?
Right.
And,
is she seeing, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, does she see, I don't know. That's a weird question. Is she seeing herself when she's walking around, or does she see him? Right.
Yeah, that's right. Mirrors are terrible for this movie. They really are. This is the central philosophical question of all of me, is what do you see when you yourself are looking at yourself out of a mirror?
And then it's funny because at the end, when he's like pining for her and he's looking every time he sees a mirror, is she in there? It's like
now,
now I have to see him again.
I feel that way whenever I shave my beard. I'm like, grow it back. It's different. It's a different guy. I don't like that guy. All right. I can't talk about this anymore. It hurts too much.
All right. Back to Terry then. So Terry. Terry and her whole plan.
Yeah.
How does it, okay, so she's the antagonist of the film, as we learn later in the film. Does it work? Do you find that surprise kind of pops up okay? Or when it happens, does it go, oh, that's kind of Or is it like, well, this is the obvious 80s way to play this? Or
Well,
how did that play
no,
for you?
you just hit it. It's the second, third, last one that you just said. Yeah. Because it's the 80s and this is what we were doing. And this, I think, is largely what we still do. If we had a chance, this is kind of how it would play out. And so I think if you're awake in movies, you're going to have seen this trope before, the betrayal of the family, and it's fine. I buy it because of the way they use the tools, and I buy it because she becomes the kind of the anarchist of her own family, right? The way she starts treating her father, and all of those things work to build this sort of tapestry of a character that I just genuinely don't like, but I'm so conflicted because she's so adorable, and I wanted to date her for so long. And now she's mean, and so that it gets me bought in emotionally.
Okay, so
you're telling me, I think you're about to tell me structurally you had quibbles. Did you have quibbles?
No, I actually agree with you. I think that it is kind of what you expect of the era, and it plays nicely. It plays fine. I actually have no issues with it. But my real question is, because of the way that the story played out, did it feel like Carl Reiner and Steve Martin coming into this project, which weirdly, I should point out, was written, it was based on an unpublished novel by Ed Davis and written by, or which Henry Olick adapted it, and then Phil Alden Robinson, who we've talked about in the director capacity before, wrote the screenplay. Neither Reiner nor Martin touched this script, but it feels very similar to a film that they previously worked on together, The Man with Two Brains, where you have this antagonistic woman who is, there's an antagonistic woman, and there's a woman with no body. And the way that the film ends is the antagonistic woman dies, essentially, and the woman with no body ends up in that body. And then Steve Martin is then able to love that person in the great body with the personality that he likes.
Yeah, right.
Is that weird? That it's like the exact same way that the film plays out. And that was my question really about Terry and the way that the film ends. It's like, it feels like kind of a rehash of that other kind of fantasy film that we watched with Steve Martin. Although the films feel totally different, but that element feels very similar. Did it bother you at all?
No, it didn't bother me. And until you brought it up, I hadn't been thinking about it. Honest to God,
really?
It didn't. And I think you said it. The movies feel so different.
Yeah, right.
And they use the tools in such a different way that I feel like this movie is able to move past it. But it's remarkable, the similarities, now that you bring it up. And once again, I feel a little bit like I'm trapped in a mirror and I'm looking out at the little fireman, wondering, how did I get here? Right?
Well, I'm here to break you. That's clearly what the show's all about.
Well, I will tell you, if this is anything, in my perspective, if we were to take that as that these things are somehow spiritually connected, it does feel to me like this is an improvement over the original, right? It's just a better movie in so many ways. Different, very different movie, very different use of the tools, but a much more sort of satisfying example. And it feels like, hey, good, at least they got the practice, because that Man with Two Brains was fine. This is a better experience for me.
I really liked The Man with Two Brains. So
yeah.
I think both of them, and that's, I think, the magic of these two films is that they very much have kind of that same thing happening with the antagonistic female character at the end of the film. But like you said, the way the stories play out and the way that I believe the characters in the context of the stories in which they appear, I totally don't feel that the similarities are there. I feel like it's two totally different films, despite the similarities. And I think that's really kind of the success that Martin and Reiner have with this film coming after Two Brains, is it has those similarities, but it never feels like they're just ripping it off. And I mean, I got to give them major kudos for doing that, because in such a fantastical sort of story, to have that happen, it's not something that you instantly go to. So I think that's really, commendable for them to pull it off in such a strong way.
Can we go back to the sex just for a second?
Yes. More sex. That's what the listeners want.
That's right. That's why they turn to the next reel. That's for sure. Does this count as a particularly a woke sexual experience? Does this count as like a three-way, what they had? If he counts as two people and they end up having sex with Victoria?
Maybe.
This movie was wildly progressive in some very strange ways.
It was.
Here we are.
Right. In a weird way, it ends up being kind of a five-way, because she's picturing Clark Gable. And so she's kind of having her own thing, and then he ends up having his own thing with the Clark Gable thing. It's like it's just everybody's in there enjoying it. It's very progressive. Okay.
I think that's how you have to introduce this film. Oh, have you seen that great Steve Martin film with the five-way? Yes. Oh, all of me? Yes, all of me. All of them.
All of them.
It all wraps up in an adorable final sort of experience between the two of them, and I love the way they actually demonstrate it, showing them, who's actually dancing with whom.
It's a great moment. It's one of those great shots in a film where it starts on Martin dancing with Edwina, now in Terry's body, and Terry saying, "I don't know how to dance. I've never danced." And he's just like, "That's fine. Just stand on my feet." It's super adorable. He's kind of showing her how to dance. And then as they're dancing, and it's getting a little bigger in the style of dance, the camera just gently pans over and lands on a mirror in which you see Martin now dancing with Lily Tomlin. Just the two of them having the time of their life. And you watch the credits through that dance scene. It is adorable, and it's perfect. It is such a great way to end this film. Loved it.
Yes, all the way through. All the way through.
So have you heard of Kings Road Entertainment, Pete?
I haven't, Andy. Kings
Road Entertainment was the production company formed by Stephen J. Friedman, a producer who actually started in the, he was hoping to be a producer, and so he acquired the film rights to a novel you may have heard of from 1966 called The Last Picture Show, written by Larry McMurtry. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of that, yes.
So he got that made. The film was nominated for a whole bunch of Oscars, and then he just kind of continued on producing more projects. And eventually he decided to form his own production company named Kings Road Entertainment, named after the road on which he lived. And he was one of the first independent film producers to raise a lot of film funding through a publicly traded company. This company was formed in 1984, and All of Me was the first film produced through Kings Road Entertainment. And he would go on to do projects all the way up through Mother, the 1996 Albert Brooks, Debbie Reynolds one, not the more recent Darren Aronofsky version. He did the comedy Mother, and that was sadly his last film because he died a little bit after that, sadly, at the young age of 59. But this was kind of the start of his company. And he would go on to do stuff like Creator, Enemy Mine, Touch and Go, The Big Easy, Morgan Stewart's Coming Home, The Night Before, There Goes the Neighborhood, and Mother.
I've seen a couple of those and like them quite a bit.
Yeah. Enemy Mine is one that's always stuck with me.
Why'd they stop? Why it doesn't exist anymore? Who bought it?
Well, it died when he died. It was his company. And so the films that he did, this was, Universal was distributing this. And then I think Universal has, I don't know how it works. I think they have some sort of a distribution deal with Lionsgate, because the version I watched had the Lionsgate logo in the front of it.
Me too. Lionsgate. Talk about an auspicious company.
Lionsgate and Trimark was another logo
Yeah.
at the front of mine. And Trimark, they were putting stuff like this out they were the ones who released the DVD. So Universal probably had the distribution, releasing it through Lionsgate, who hired Trimark to do the DVD distribution. So it's, these crazy chains that these things end up.
Couple of points of production. We have Richard H. Klein behind the camera. Richard H. Klein, he's got some credits and stamina. At least he did until he passed away. We've talked about him on the show a number of times. We talked about the Andromeda Strain. We talked about, other shows in this very series. We really should talk about him because of Tom Hanks. He did the Man with One Red Shoe, and that's been kind of a thing.
I don't think he did anything else in this
Howard
series, just this film. Yeah.
Howard the Duck, though.
Yeah, Howard the Duck. My Stepmother is an Alien. Important films
around these parts.
Important films.
Yeah. Double Impact. Don't even start. 56 credits. And so
he did
Richard
Battle
Klein.
for the Planet of the Apes way back when.
Yes, he did.
We talked about that on the show.
Lot of good camera work. This movie does not stand out to me as a particularly camera hungry film.
But I will say, and this is something that we haven't discussed, like during the mirror shots, a lot of times they were doing the whole trick where there would be nothing there and it would be another set behind it that would match the set. And Martin and Tomlin would just kind of match movements as they would kind of come in and do their scenes together. So that obviously requires a little more trick lighting to kind of light them both well. And I think they did a good job there. And then there were some obvious times where it was a mat put over a piece of mirror. And, those sometimes didn't look quite as good, but it's early in the technology, and I think they did fine. And I think in context of some of the complexities that Klein had to deal with in lighting some of that sort of stuff, I think he did a good job.
Now, Bud Mullen did the editing, and we had some problems with some of Mullen's editing work before. I did not notice any of those here.
Yeah, he's done all the films that Martin has done with Reiner. The Jerk, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, and The Man with Two Brains, and this. We did have problems with The Man with Two Brains. There was some choppy editing in there that made it a little more frustrating. And I think we kind of attributed that to maybe it was just the script, maybe it was the pacing at which they were forced to kind of do it. We don't know, but we didn't notice it in The Jerk or Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, and I certainly didn't notice it here. So I think you're right. I feel like whatever it was that was happening during The Man with Two Brains, it must have just been other issues, because I think Bud Mullen does a fine job here.
Absolutely. How did it stand in the sequels and remakes category, Andy? When am I going to see The Rest of Me?
Well, The Rest of Me. But surprisingly, DreamWorks was planning on doing a remake of it as of 2012 with Abby Cohn and Mark Silverstein writing, John Davis producing. That was a while ago. 7 years, no news. I think that we can pretty much safely say that it's completely fizzled out. Interestingly, though, a few years later, NBC was talking about doing a TV series of this. And I think that never happened. Betsy Thomas was going to be the showrunner on it. And again, 4 years down the road, nothing's happened. I think we can safely say All of Me is not moving forward in any of those capacities. Although it seems like something that people would still enjoy. So
it is. It's the kind of story that's just ripe for a remake or a reboot. It just feels like it. Watch it. It could be on. It's an Amazon Prime thing.
It would be. Who'd you cast in it?
Ana de Armas,
The Rock,
and
The
Ana
Rock,
de Armas,
and Ana de
and
Armas.
The Rock. Yes,
there it is.
That's who I would do, and that's absolutely. There would be a lot
Dwayne
more
Johnson.
just lifting of things and monologuing, but that's okay. I'm there for
I
it.
want to hear Dwayne Johnson. I can't go in there. That's the men's room. I guarantee his back is not as hairy as Steve Martin.
To see The Rock looking down, take out the little fireman. I mean, come on. This stuff writes itself. It's already been written.
It's a winner. Yes, indeed.
Okay. How to do at awards season.
This film did get nominated, 2 wins, 2 other nominations at the Golden Globes. Both Lily Tomlin and Steve Martin were nominated in their categories for Best Performer in a Comedy or Musical. Lily Tomlin, unfortunately, lost to Kathleen Turner in Romancing the Stone. I have a hard time arguing that. I love Romancing the Stone and think that makes sense to me. Steve Martin, on the other hand, he lost to Dudley Moore for Mickey and Maude. That is a strange one for me because I think Steve Martin is such at the top of his game here. What he does with his performance is beyond anything that Dudley Moore did in that film. And I mean, Dudley Moore was fine in his 80s comedies. He really was. But I think Steve Martin owned it here. Now, this is a tricky category because he was also up against Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, and Robin Williams, not in a film that I probably would have said would win, but Moscow on the Hudson. That's a pretty thick category of top-notch comedy. And I still would argue Steve Martin, for me, is the best of all of them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
That's that on rewatch. And I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Moscow on the Hudson. A very long time.
Yeah.
But, and equally Dudley Moore, but we just watched some clips before we started recording and I think that was enough.
Yeah, that was all I
for
needed
me
to see
to confirm that I don't need to see that movie.
Luckily, Steve Martin did win at the National Society of Film Critics Awards and the New York Film Critics Circle Awards for Best Actor. So at least he did get a couple awards out of this one.
How about the box office? Did it make any money?
Well, for Reiner's and Martin's fourth and final collaboration, it was another one with no budget info anywhere that I could find, unfortunately. But at least we know that this one was a hit. The movie did open September 21st, 1984, opposite The Evil That Men Do and Until September, as well as the limited releases of Amadeus, Places in the Heart, The River Rat, and Windy City. All of Me opened big and is the film that knocked Ghostbusters from its perch in the #1 spot, where it had been sitting for 15 straight weeks. And then it held on to that spot for 2 more weeks. So All of Me is the one that kind of knocked it off its throne. This movie did go on to make $36.4 million at the box office, which is $89.5 million in today's dollars. All told, it is a handsome sum for the film.
It's because of my mom. And I mean, like seriously, Ghostbusters was not a movie that she was all that keen about seeing in the theater, but this one absolutely was. And
Yeah.
I think that this is just the kind of counter-programming comedy that just brought out a different audience.
There is
although arguably, like at 15 weeks it's about time for that to taper.
Right. Yeah, it had been quite a while. It had been quite a while. There is a possibility that I did see this in the theaters. I can't 100% confirm that because it was still rated R when it came out. So I think that there is a likelihood that I did not get to go see it. But it didn't seem like this was PG. I don't know why I was thinking this is R.
Yeah,
because so many of his others were R. So yeah, I feel like this might have been one that I actually saw, my first Steve Martin film in a theater. I just have so many of his moments so vividly like burned into my brain of the way he's acting. And so, I this is a good one. I really, really liked this film.
Well, I'm kind of excited to see where we go here when we take it to the mat.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You'll see all of the movies that we've talked about on this show. If you tap on the word Flickchart in the show notes in your podcast app of choice, it should take you straight to this movie where you can add it to your catalog and see how it stacks up against ours.
First up, we have All of Me or Scanners. Oh,
All of Me.
I really loved Scanners.
All of Me. Let me protect you from you. All of Me. I know. Scanners also. I'm with you. It hurts.
You don't like Scanners. You hated it. I will say All of Me though.
You see, I'm trying to gaslight you.
I know,
just
you
a little
totally
bit.
were. I'm like, did he really like it? Listen to you.
Now, had we hit the Brood, Andy, we would have trouble.
All right, the little Martin on Martin action. All of Me or The Man with Two Brains.
All of Me.
I really liked The Man with Two Brains, Pete.
You're allowed to.
I'm going to say All of Me.
Yep.
All of Me or Rocky.
Rocky, Andy.
I got to go with Rocky. All of Me or No Country for Old Men? I definitely have seen No Country for Old Men.
No Country.
All of Me or Zero Dark 30?
Zero Dark 30, please.
Zero Dark 30. All of Me or Predestination?
Predestination, please.
Predestination. All of Me or Fargo? Fargo,
Andy,
for sure.
Really? Flick chart? Really? Fargo.
All of Me or Raise the Red Lantern? Oh, Raise the
Red Lantern.
We've kind of hit this wall of really great films. All of Me or Dead Ringers?
I could be swayed.
I really like Dead Ringers. I also really like All of Me. I'm going to say All of Me.
That's astute criticism.
I know.
We've really hit the bottom of the barrel. I'll go with you on All of Me, but I also really liked.
This is it's a pairing I could have gone either way on.
I know.
On any given day, I could be swayed pretty easily. Well, that puts All of Me in spot 107 on our chart. 107 out of 431 films. That gives it about 75% on our chart, or 4 out of 5 stars.
Well, I didn't even have Flick Chart open, Andy, so you have to go first. How to do on your personal ranking?
This was one of those films that was really low on my chart for some reason, because I just hadn't seen it in so long, and I think that it just kind of it fell pretty low without me really paying attention to it. It was at 2794 out of 4254. I re-ranked it, and unfortunately, it was running, I need to do some re-ranking or something, because it was running into a lot of really good films, and it only jumped up to 2261 on my chart, which is a 47%, which is, in my opinion, much too low for the film.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It was in exactly the same situation for me. It was very, very low. I don't even remember where it was, but I think it was over 1,000. And so I re-ranked it, and it ran into a number of very challenging walls, and it ended up at 419 out of 1420, which puts it at 70%. And that feels still too low, and so I blame Flickchart, and by extension probably you. And so if I'm to do that, then if I'm to go by the algorithm here at Flickchart, moving over to letterboxd.com/the next reel, that says this should be a 3.5-star movie. Now, Andy, when I say 3.5 stars, that makes my throat tense up. That doesn't feel right. That feels wrong. The question is, how wrong is it? That is the question for the class today. And I think it is a question of possibly a full star.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
4.5, huh?
That's where I'm leaning. Where are you?
I walked into this conversation at a 4 out of 5. I feel like I may have gone up to a 4.5, but I also feel a little uncomfortable with that. So I feel like I should leave it at 4
Tell me,
stars.
Andy, what makes you feel uncomfortable about that?
Well, the Pete that's in half of my body right now wants to give it a 4.5. And the Andy that's in the other half of my body says, no, just leave it at 4.
Does he have some quibbles? Leave it at 4. It's fine. I'm fine being the outlier here. I feel like I had just a great time with this movie, and frankly, I cannot wait to watch it with the rest of the family, so they too can say "Begging Bull" all the time.
Yeah. Now that you said that with the Swami, and I'm like, 4 is right. 4 is the right. Oh yeah, Swami. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Thanks for convincing me of that.
Well, that played out horribly for me. Where do we go from here now that we have finished our illustrious Steve Martin series?
This is going to be a fun one. We are going to be moving to a different writer-director. We're going to be looking at Colin Higgins. Do you know much about Colin Higgins?
Well, I know he's done some movies that I like a lot.
He has. He's an Australian-American writer, actor, director, producer. And we're going to be looking at 5 of his films, I believe. We're going to be looking at some of the early ones that he wrote, Harold and Maude, Silver Streak, and Foul Play, which is the first one that he also directed. And then we'll also look at 9 to 5 and The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, both of which he wrote and directed. So it'll be fun.
Set of films.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll talk a little bit about who Colin Higgins is, his story when we start the series, so we can learn more about who this person is we're going to be chronicling.
Now, Andy, as we talk about all of this, it is right now, and I should say to you out loud, to your face, Merry Christmas, because that was yesterday.
Hey.
As we record this. So a happy holiday.
Happy holidays.
I hope you're feeling good.
My spirits are bright.
What happens immediately after our Colin Higgins series?
It's going to be our Guilty Pleasure series. Are you so
What?
excited?
I am shocked and awed that we're coming. Really? You mean we get to do a Guilty Pleasure series again? Andy, I know you've been really waiting for this. I know how excited you must be.
Yes, you who sneak it onto the schedule. I'm like, oh, I guess Pete has something he really wants to talk about. So,
Andy, I
crappy Prince movie.
I exist to right wrongs on our catalog. But my question is, do you know what your guilty pleasure is going to be yet?
I don't.
So that, by extension, means that next week, when we start Colin Higgins, we need to announce our guilty pleasure. You have a week. You have 7 days.
No.
Yeah.
Why do we announce it at the beginning? We announce it at the end when it's about to start.
No, because we got to give people enough time to get people. The people have to have time, Andy, to get the movies.
Ugh, you're a terrible person.
Yeah, figure it out. You have 7 days. Clock is ticking, man.
7
Clock
days.
is ticking. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're brutal.
Yeah. That's right. You have it. It's clicking down as it's a tattoo on your arm. Don't look now, but just like it's there. It's ticking down 7 days.
Okay. Hey, I forgot to say this about Steve Martin. Let me jump back to our actual show real quick. Steve Martin said about this film, he said, "My mature film career started with All of Me and ends with LA Story." There you go. We'll end the show on that.
That sounds about right. That's on brand.
I would say his mature film
that.
career continued a little past LA Story.
Yeah.
But whatever.
All right. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Amazon giveth, Andrew.
As Amazon sometimes do it.
Amazon sometimes do it. What do you, this is,
I didn't go with Amazon. I gave up on them because all the negative reviews were just about the quality of the disc, and I was disappointed. So I went. I actually went high, but I'm over on Common Sense Media with
excellent.
a parent review, not a child.
Not
review.
a parent
because
okay.
no child watches this movie.
More children.
It's too
should watch
old
this
for
movie.
them. They don't watch movies from 1984.
Oh,
it's
that's
older
right.
than they are.
Well, that's why they've actually set Wonder Woman 2 in 1984 to remind kids how great 1984 was. Isn't that what that's supposed
right.
to do? I
wonder if they're going to go to the theater to watch this in the movie.
In the mall.
I wonder if that's how Steve, this is us talking, we've only seen the trailer.
Yeah.
I wonder if Steve is actually inside Wonder Woman and she is projecting him out, much like Steve Martin does here with the mirrors.
Do you know what? That's exactly it. And all they do is go around museums and look at trash cans.
Oh, I love it.
It's it. He is, yeah.
It really is the remake of All of Me.
He's a Force Steve. It's a Force Steve. Oh, okay. All right. What do you got?
You want me to go hot first? All right. Yeah. I got a 4-star by Andre Yutza, who says, "I cried. I laughed. I'm still thinking."
That was brilliant. I think that people who are not members of the community miss that live stream bit of genius, which is just your face as you do this better every week. Putting that on a t-shirt.
And I will say that Andre Yutza also said this is appropriate for children under the age or over the age of 10. 10 and up.
10 and up. All right. Well, I have a 1-star from Portia who says 1 star.
Ooh.
It is another boring movie that promised everything and delivered tedium. Good actors totally wasted on a terrible script. No, that was... I've been practicing.
Your Werner's getting a little better.
My Werner's getting better. It's getting better. I'm going to continue to practice until I nail it, Andy. Nail it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
I've been watching documentaries of him talking about depressed penguins.
I was going to say the point you get somebody reviewing and bringing up depressed penguins, you will have it perfect.
I will have arrived.
So yes.
Thanks, Amazon. It's hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We are highlighting adaptations from Season 9 over at our Originals page, thenextreel.com/originals. That's the site where listeners can purchase the source material for all of our adapted film discussions.
We had a big Robin Hood series this season, looking at 9 different versions on screen. Many were likely adapted from Howard Pyle's The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, including Douglas Fairbanks in Robin Hood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and the 1991 Robin Hood, and Ridley Scott's Robin Hood.
Robin and Marian was specifically based on the ballad The Jest of Robin Hood.
And we really don't have too much to say about Robin and the Seven Hoods.
We talked Dead Ringers for our David Cronenberg series adapted from Barry Wood and Jack Geislin's novel Twins.
Have you checked out that show?
I haven't, but I've heard great things.
2 comedies from our Steve Martin series were adaptations, Pennies from Heaven from the BBC series, and The Lonely Guy from the book by Bruce J. Friedman.
The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas was part of our Colin Higgins series, adapted from the Broadway musical.
Spike Lee brought us Black Klansman from Ron Stallworth's memoir.
And we looked at a trio of John le Carré adaptations, The Spy Who Came in from the Cold, The Little Drummer Girl, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Plus, all 3 movies in our Agnieszka Holland series were based on books, Europa, In Darkness, and Spore.
La Cage aux Folles and its remake The Birdcage both came from Jean Poiret's original play.
We also talked about Arsenic and Old Lace and Charade in our Cary Grant series.
All of these were based on other material, and it is all available on our Originals page, thenextreel.com/originals. Every book purchased supports the podcast.
Get the full list of adaptations we've covered and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.